need a high-end designer or a lot of money to get a luxe look. Be your own interior designer.
This is Affordable Interior Design, the podcast.
Here's your host, Betsy Helmuth.
Let's go to my next question. My next question is from Tanya, and Tanya is writing from Bonnie Lake, Washington. She says, Betsy, our house has 2 living rooms, and one is a TV room and the other is a piano reading room. It's still a work in progress. We recently painted it and it's a little bolder than expected, but I like it. I want to add some pink magenta accents, pillows and pink or patterned upholstered chair at the piano. I know I need a rug still and a coffee table. My question is, how do I make this room more inviting? And if you have time, what type or shape of coffee table should I do? White, wood? Thank you for your time and for your podcast. Well, thanks for writing, Tanya. So yes, let's solve some problems. So it sounds like you're wanting to make the room feel more cozy, more welcoming, and then you also need that coffee table shape. All right, well, first let me describe the room for those of you who are not watching along on YouTube. Okay, so let's get in there because you've made some bold choices, and I did see that you sent a second email that I want to address just because they go hand in hand. So just a little bit later, you wrote, Hi, Betsy. I previously submitted a question, just sending you a picture of a different viewpoint. Our dining room is more traditional and wood and more heavy than the living room that I'm focused on. I would eventually like to get a different set or more modern chairs to the set. Try and tie the 2 rooms together more. Thanks again. So the reason that I brought up your second question is because the 2 rooms do open out into each other, and it wasn't obvious from your first question. So I'm really glad you sent this follow-up because right now the living room is like a shade of what would I call this? It's not really teal. It's more like an ocean blue, I would say, because it's definitely more blue than green. And there's a few different styles going on. So I'm feeling conflicted. We've got a Sputnik chandelier in the living room that's white. Then we have a small geometric mirror that's really too small above that sofa because remember my 50 to 75% rule. This looks very small above the sofa. So while I love this hexagonal shape, I do think that the size is making it too small for this area. But turn it vertically and it could go in lots of different places in this room. All right, you have 2 sofas with rolled arms, and they're both navy on sort of a gray plush carpeting. And the thing that's bothering me about this is that you appear to have several styles going on. At the piano, you've got a tapered leg chair that looks like it's in a blue velvet. But then this rolled arm situation is making me feel that you've got a traditional vibe, or I'm sorry, not traditional, transitional vibe. But then the Sputnik, the tapered leg is taking me in a mid-century modern direction. And then your lamps have crystal bases that have cubes stacked on top of each other. But the shades are quite bold with these sort of organic jelly bean type shapes in mid-century modern colors of light olive, tangerine, like a powder blue. So I'm feeling like this room has a bit of a loss of identity. I'm wondering what your 2-word phrase is. I'm also wondering what 2-word phrase you want to embody because when I'm looking into the dining room, the furniture is really very traditional. So the table and chairs and hutch all appear to be a matching set with ornate carvings. It's like a mid-tone warm kind of honey wood. It's totally incongruous with what we just saw in the other room. Now people write me and they say, Betsy, this is the problem I'm having. This is the question I want answered. And as you guys know, I'm going to give you a lot more advice, suggestion, whatever. I'm going to tell you what I see. Now, I don't do this with my clients, right? Well, I kind of do. It depends on the client, but I don't do this with friends. Let's say that Tanya was at my house and we were hanging out, or she, let's say, invited me to her house, right? She invites me to Washington for a barbecue or whatever. It starts to rain. We go inside. She says, Betsy, what do you think of this room? How can I make it more inviting? Would I tell her that the two rooms look like they're coming from totally different magazines? Would I tell her that these transitional sofas seem totally out of place in this mid-century modern vibe, and that this heavy, chunky, traditional dining furniture that you tell me you're going to be getting rid of is just so dominant in the other room that I can't even imagine it gone until you show me what you're going to replace it with? Because I need to know what direction we're swimming in here, Tanya. But I would not be telling you that. I would only answer your question. However, when you write into my podcast, I'll tell you whatever the heck I want because, I don't want to hurt your feelings, but I can go there. You've asked me, whereas at a barbecue or something, I try and keep it light and try and just answer what they've asked. So if I was going to make this more inviting, I feel like it's inviting and cozy enough. I've given it a bad rap, but it is actually a sweet little space. I think it just feels all over the place. And I feel like the thing that would make it more inviting is to make it feel more cohesive and intentional. Right now, it feels like a collection of found objets. So for me, this would feel more comfortable and inviting if you had a 2-word phrase that you would actually stick to for both rooms that open into each other. If you would get a larger piece above the sofa so that it feels more proportional. If you would take the kind of spread out linear alignment of artwork that you have spanning from across the fireplace mantle all the way above this cubby bookcase, and instead turn it into kind of a asymmetrical configuration above the fireplace that doesn't extend past the mantle. I think that could be really cool. Kind of this curated mini gallery wall above the fireplace, because I love all the colors in this artwork. And I love the idea that you're open to a lot of color in this space, which is really not what we're seeing in your dining room. But right now, it feels really haphazard, and it feels like you kind of are just hanging things on pre-existing nails versus doing something intentional. The other thing that I think would really bring the two rooms together is doing the same window treatment that's in the living room and bringing it into the dining room. Now, in this case, your living room windows are bare and your dining room windows appear to have like a navy patterned drape. It's hard for me to tell exactly. But I would continue those same drapes as long as it aligns with the color palette that you're going to create with some kind of inspiration piece that you're going to bring in here. I would bring those same drapes into these windows in the living room. And I think that will make a huge difference and make it feel warmer and more inviting, because we're breaking up all these sort of ocean blue walls with a warmer texture being the warmth of fabric. A big thank you to Aton and the Embassy, who wrote our theme song. A shout out to Catherine Heller, who owns the podcast shop and is our editor extraordinaire. We also want to thank Ginny Sunasan and her team at the Savvy Podcast Agency for their help with our social, our YouTube channel, and so much more. We also want to thank Uploft, which is our parent company who supports this podcast. And lastly, we owe a huge debt of gratitude to you. Thank you so much for tuning in and for all your support.